Good morning, and thank you for joining me today after our holiday weekend. It was a weird weekend in many respects, and it was surreal to me various times over the weekend as I watched our beloved city literally come alive. Busy, with guests from across the country, spending time with their besties in the hostess city of the South, enjoying their best times in well over a year. And I watched the eyes of the young and the young at heart while watching our amazing fireworks show. Our neighborhoods were alive. I traversed the city during the course of the weekend, and I saw smiles and I saw laughter. I felt relief as we celebrated our nation and our city, again claiming significant progress against a common enemy known as COVID-19. So the good news and the promising news is that our country and our city are coming back. But by no means does this mean that we can dance in the end zone, as our vaccine rates remain lower than the national average, and we must continue to work to get as many Savannahans vaccinated as possible. And we will continue to do all we can to help make that happen. And we're going to be doing that soon in a very big way. We're still encouraging everyone to know the facts and get their vax. The COVID vaccination clinic at the Savannah Civic Center is open on Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and both the Pfizer and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines are available. This weekend, the Coastal Health District and CORE are again teaming up to bring 3 clinics. On Saturday, they're partnering with Parent University to offer vaccines at their graduation ceremony, and so you can get a shot from 10 a.m. to noon at 11935 Abercorn Street. You could also get a vaccine Saturday at Jasper Spring Church, located at 62 Smith Avenue from 1 to 4 p.m. And you can get a COVID shot at the Connors Temple Baptist Church, located at 509 West Gwinnett Street on Sunday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And there are vaccines also widely available at pharmacies, doctors' offices, and health clinics across our community. This weekend was also busy in a different way, and in a disappointing way, as our city again dealt with several incidents of gun-related violence. So a considerable part of my time and time this weekend was spent on crime scenes and in hospitals. I thank our Savannah police officers, many of whom, instead of enjoying a well-deserved break, managed various violent incidents. The DNA of these incidents is relatively consistent. Black male suspects, black male victims who know each other and have some conflict with each other. I mean, if you put that template on it, it's the same thing over and over again. While Chief Minter will brief the City Council on Thursday on the various initiatives that the police department is engaged in, essentially our game plan, to be honest with you, and I kind of mused this with the chief over the weekend, I'm not exactly sure how to stop someone who has the absolute means, the absolute motive, the absolute opportunity, and the absolute intention to do harm to someone else. I'm not sure how to get in the way of that. I just don't. And so that is the million-dollar question, not only for Savannah, but for cities across the country, as we still have victims who refuse to cooperate with the police, and you have people still in communities who refuse to say what they saw. I do know that we must remove the means. We must remove illegal guns. I know we must remove the motives as best we can. We must remove the opportunity, and we have to get in the way of the intention, or remove a combination of these factors. I do also know that clearly there are people on our streets who should not be there, and we're actively seeking and working with our system to remove them from our streets as our criminal justice system cranks back into full gear. And so there are individuals who benefited in some ways from the pandemic, from the slowdown of the criminal justice system. Maybe they were not indicted, maybe they had not been to court, maybe they were released on misdemeanors, but it's time for them to go back. These are our family members, our neighbors, our acquaintances, but this behavior will not and cannot be allowed to prevail. Again, Chief Mentor is here, and he can share the operational aspects of our game plan as he deems appropriate. The City of Savannah is now also accepting 2022 arts and culture enrichment applications for the funding of arts, culture, and heritage programs. There are several workshops this week where you can learn more about the program, and all applicants are highly encouraged to attend. There is a virtual workshop at 11 a.m. or a virtual or in-person meeting at 6 p.m. There's also a virtual or in-person session on Saturday, July the 10th at 11 a.m. You must RSVP by 5 p.m. today to attend tomorrow's sessions, or 5 p.m. on Friday to attend the Saturday session. And you can RSVP by emailing scaccontracts@savannahga.gov, scaccontracts@savannah.gov, savannahga.gov, excuse me. And a recording will be made available for those who are unable to attend a live session. The city's community partnership program is also accepting applications for the funding of social services programs. And for more information about the community partnership program, you can visit savannahga.gov/grants, savannahga.gov/grants, or call 912-651-6520. The deadline for submitting applications for both programs is Monday, August the 2nd at 5 p.m. Interested businesses can now sign up for the city's Aluminum To Go Cup pilot program, and this program will help provide aluminum cups to partnering businesses at a discounted rate, with the goal of inspiring other businesses and customers to move away from those dreaded single-use plastic to-go cups. The pilot program is scheduled to last 60 days once the City Council passes an ordinance to allow it. Any businesses interested in participating should visit savannahga.gov/AL2GO, savannahga.gov/AL2GO to sign up and learn more about the program. And our beautiful historic city has been growing visual blight because of those signs that are placed illegally in public rights-of-way. We've all seen them. These illegal signs create visual clutter and attack the character of our city. It's litter. And so over the past 3 weeks, the Code Compliance Department has collected and disposed of literally hundreds of these illegal signs. The code compliance officers will continue to collect illegally placed signs between curbs and sidewalks and medians and near utility poles. They are also working to educate businesses about where they can put signs, including on private property, with the owner's permission. And so we need our business community to help us mitigate this issue before we move to enforcement measures. Residents who see illegal signs can call the city's Code Compliance Department at 912-651-6770 or report the problem to 311. Next week, the city will host open house events for residents to learn more about the proposal for developing the Savannah Fairgrounds. The development teams will be on site to explain their plans and to answer questions. Last year, as you remember, we promised the neighboring communities, particularly those of Fowler Terrace and Tatumville, Fowler Park in Tatumville. The opportunity to view the proposals before the council was briefed on them, which is different, which is extraordinary. It's kind of out of our process. It's unusual, but given the magnitude and the sensitivity of the project, the City Council felt that this was an appropriate way to proceed. So we will host the first event on Tuesday, July the 13th, at the Fairgrounds property located at 4701 Medding Street. The second one will be on Wednesday, July the 14th, at the Savannah Civic Center, for anybody who would like to check those plans out. So again, next Tuesday, a week from today, at the Fairgrounds property, and then on Wednesday, the 14th, a week from tomorrow, at the Savannah Civic Center. Both open houses are scheduled from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m., and you can drop in at any time. And we are excited for our community to finally see these proposals, which I have not seen, but more importantly, to provide comments and feedback. From there, the council will be briefed on the proposals on July the 15th, and per our procurement ordinance, the city manager and staff will rate the proposals and provide a recommendation to the city council, who will then ultimately vote on the recommendation. So this is what we promised, and I'm glad that we are delivering on what we promised. Finally, we're keeping a watchful eye on Tropical Storm Elsa, which is currently bearing down on the portions of the west coast of Florida. So as you're aware, we're currently under a tropical storm watch, and we expect to feel the effects of Elsa starting tomorrow. I spoke with Dennis Jones at the Chatham Emergency Management Agency this morning, and we're expecting it to possibly be, well, right now it's west of us, and so we get the rainfall on the east end of the storm. So it could be a heavy rain event, or it could be a lighter rain event. Right now, it's just kind of the projection is straddling the line. So we do think that given its current path and current speed, that it will be to us maybe at close of business tomorrow, and that it will be primarily a night event. But we'll see how it goes. Right now, it can be anywhere from 2 to 3 inches of rain. It could be more, it could be less. But we encourage everyone to pay attention to weather alerts and warnings. And now is an excellent time to review your emergency plans. What do you do if you have to leave here? What do you do if you have to stay here? What do you do if you don't have any power? What do you do if people can't get to you? And so this is a time that helps us to remind ourselves of situational awareness, remind ourselves of the what-ifs, for us to have contingency plans in place, for us to call those relatives that we are planning to go visit if we had to leave here, and make sure they want us to come. We want people to have plans. We want to make sure that you have medications, batteries, food, but most importantly, it's important to have a plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And after all, we know for us that this is hurricane season. So June 1st to December 1st is hurricane season for us. We know Elsa is not the first. Elsa certainly won't be the last. So we want our folks to be prepared. So that ends my prepared remarks, and I'll entertain any questions you may have. And at my conclusion, if you have any questions for Chief Minter, I believe he's prepared as well.
Morning.
Good morning.
Happy to you.
Thank you. Happy 6th to you.
Yes, second on purpose. Thank you. First question to you, is the city preparing to do anything after regular in terms of also, i.e. like shutting down or postponing certain events?
No, right now we are, we're watching. Again, what we're dealing on right now is projections. And so we know that there are tropical storm warnings on the west coast of Florida. As you know, that's quite a ways. We'll see how it interacts with land. We'll see how it moves up the coast. We know it's coming. We just don't know where. It could bear to the west and we'd be totally out of the cone, or it can, be pushed to the east, and then we now have a more significant event. So right now, there are no plans for us to close anything. We're keeping a weather eye out for that, and again, we're working with our partners at SEMA and our emergency management that'll advise us.
And my last question to you, anything in terms of, sometimes when it rains heavy in Savannah, we get those pockets of, flooding. Anybody, do anything about that as far as stop water?
Well, I think that the interesting thing about Savannah is that in some areas it's extremely predictable. We have areas that we know are low. The topography of our city, in some places, it's just low. We know that if it rains at a certain time, it's okay. And we don't flood like we used to. We know that some places, if it rains hard enough over a certain period of time and it's high tide, we can have problems. And what comes to my mind is on Gwinnett Street, right at East Broad Street, where you go underneath that train trestle. I mean, that's a basin. I think of Louisville Road, right at, I guess that'd be East Lathrop, underneath a train trestle, same issue. I think about MLK and Victory Drive. It's kind of on a slant, and so the water goes there. So again, that's why timing is everything. And I think our citizens should know enough, and again, that when that happens, don't go. I mean, I always see somebody, and again, I have a car that's pretty low to the ground, but I'll see somebody, they're looking, it's like, should I? Should I not? Should I? Should I not? And then they try it, and they find out, that it's too much. I mean, my car's a little too old, and I don't want to put her through that trauma. So, it's just worth it to just go somewhere else. We do best we can to shut down intersections, but sometimes, it happens relatively quickly. So we're asking people, again, to avoid those areas that we know flood under those circumstances, and just to be safe. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning, ma'am.
The trials this holiday weekend, what do you think those say about the economic impact of our city, or outlook, sorry?
It says that Savannah is strong and vibrant. There were folks everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And so it was a good week, I believe, for our business community that need that shot in the arm. It was a good week for Savannah. People were there. I mean, that's a good thing. I was on River Street. I was the only one I think I saw wearing a mask. So if you were looking for me, look at the person that was wearing a mask, and that was probably me. But that concerned me still. Again, our vaccination rates are relatively still low. The Delta variant is there. It's in several states, and so people coming transmit that here. So I'm concerned about the impact and how that look for our infection rates going forward, and so we'll be monitoring that as well. But overall, it was a good weekend in that sense of it. Again, it was the tale of two Savannahs. One I talked about in terms of my time with the chief, but then on the other side of it, for our economy, where we just have to get people in these businesses to work. And I think that's what I heard the most. That we have the volume, we just don't have we don't have the ability to keep up with the supply.
And then switching gears a little bit, I know council at the end of May, I believe, passed an ordinance to phase out single-use plastics inside city buildings within the year. Any updates on that? Have you guys started making small steps towards that inside city buildings?
Right. Yes. I think it starts really at the department level. So I think that there's some general guidance. We have Nick Deffley is our sustainability director. To really look at things you could do right here, again. But, again, how do we find ways? I have to get me an aluminum cup. But we have to just figure out ways of how do we phase that in. It's a process. It's an education process. It's a change of thinking. It's a change in culture. So you start changing the culture with education. So.
Last question for you. Can you provide an update on your 100 Days Gun Violence campaign? Any updates with mothers, fathers, conversations that you've had?
Yeah, we're still having those conversations. I would think that from the full court press that we've placed on this, maybe we might have more gun violence. I mean, I've seen where there are some successful interventions. I spoke with a mother at the hospital on Friday. So you see sometimes opportunities where there are, successful interventions. So we have to stop people from getting into the pipeline, and then we have to deal with people who are already there. And again, I think it's a two-pronged solution. I think that our game plan is good. We have to stick with the plan, recognizing that again, if I wanted to shoot you right now, and Chief Mentor is right there, Sergeant Gray's right there, nothing's going to stop me from getting you. They might get me, but I'm going to get you. And I think that's what the challenge is that if I have the absolute intention to do harm to you, that how do they stop me from doing that if that's what I choose to do? I'll sit around, I just wait till they turn their back, then I do harm to you. So that's the challenge of really changing that thought pattern, putting some space in between them. Again, being on the ground, talking to these young men. They're really young men. Come on, let's not go here. Be the one that breaks that cycle. That's the challenging part. So that's why we've enlisted the help of mothers. We've enlisted help now with fathers, and our faith community of really being able to say, we have to figure out ways to be able to deal with it. Now, like I said, it's happening all over the country. That's no excuse for us. We think that any violent crime is unacceptable. But again, it's really dealing with the intentions of changing mindsets of people. And so in those cases, a resource may not necessarily help them. You have to really get to that person in that moment and say, enough is enough. So.
And I'm going to ask Chief Mentor this too, but one of the shootings was on Avery Street. Another person died again.
I was there.
You've said in the past, more boots on the ground isn't the answer, but what does the city do differently in that area specifically, as this third shooting on that same street?
We're having some courageous conversations with the Housing Authority of Savannah. This is not city-owned housing, but when you have an identified problem, then you deal with the problem. To me, it's a problem. If there is a location where these types of things regularly occur, it's an issue for me. It's an issue. There's something going on. And so, again, I leave the Chief Mentor and them to deduce what is, but, while we were out there at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, I'm like, this is deja vu all over again. We're back in the same place, some of the same people. That has to change because it's not fair to the people who live around it. So.
And then, this is really the last question.
You sure?
Maybe,
No, you're fine.
Can you give a little update on the city manager process?
Well, as you know, last week we met our candidates, our finalists. The city council interviewed them on Friday. On Saturday, the community met them, the media had an opportunity to meet them. We compiled that feedback and provided it to city council members. We'll be meeting to just determine whether we can get to a consensus. Now it's about the votes of the 9. And so, again, I'm striving for 9-0, ultimately, even if not initially. But I think that we have candidates that are willing to come on a split vote if that's what it is. The difference was, and people don't want to say this, is that the candidates before were not willing, and I mean understandably so, to leave their homes, leave their jobs, leave their livelihoods to come to a new opportunity on a 5-4 vote. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I'm sure that many of you probably would. In this case, we have 3 candidates that basically would do it. So I think that changes the dynamics this time. I think that we have some great candidates to choose from. And so it's just a matter of where council falls in on that. And so, my only expectation in this is to get at least a nominated candidate out of this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. And the phone is out.
No. So we do have the executive session for today.
We do.
Is that a big step in finding that finalist, that sole finalist?
It's on personnel. So we'll be working towards that process.
And back to the senior neighborhood street, I know you mentioned that it's a lot of similar actors in similar areas. Is it the same as what we saw a couple weeks back when we had a number of people shot there in that same area?
What do you mean the same?
Is it the same location? We've heard.
I'll let the chief. You know, that's probably more an investigative issue. But I will tell you, I was on the same block. It was the same block, and you know, some of the people I saw involved, you know, that were victimized, I saw them. It's like, you know, hey, you know, we're back here again, and so. You know, again, I just think that, you know, you have to identify people, you have to identify locations. And so when those types of things happen, I think that, you know, again, the chief will speak more to that, you know, to the level that he can in the investigative process. But it was like deja vu all over again. And, you know, that's an issue for me.
Well, and as locations go, there's one right here on the back doorstep.
Yeah.
On Sunday night as well. So, I mean, obviously, locations like that, it's a little harder to predict.
Right. Right. Again, fortunately for us, again, it fit the template. You know, individuals who may know each other have some issue with each other, so it wasn't random. Fortunately, again, it was at the end of the day, people were gone. For the most part, I was down here earlier. You know, it's the same thing. And we have to remove the means, the motive, the opportunity, and the intention. I mean, we've got to figure out ways to be able to do that, and, you know, we're working to be able to do that. Again, looking across the country, we've had some cities that really had an extremely rough weekend, or much rougher than we are. Again, we don't take that as an excuse, but, you know, we take it that this is an issue that we have to be able to address. A couple of weeks ago, when Dr. Toomey was here, you know, we really talked about being able to address this as a public health crisis, because it is. And how do we work with the state to be able to identify this? Certainly, if not a public health crisis, a mental health crisis, in terms of how do we help to de-escalate people from that moment of rage where they make decisions that they can't pull back. You know, how do we, you know, get in between folks that it's like, I'm riding over here, and if I see Sean Evans, and I mean, and that's the issue. It's like we're riding around, and then there you go, right there. And so then you adjudicate that matter right where you are. And so, as the chief has said, we were talking over the weekend again, I mean, we're a blessed community in that if we didn't have great health care, in terms of the folks at Memorial really doing a phenomenal job of keeping people alive. And again, you know, it shows the benefit of trauma care. If we did not have a great police department that clears 80% of their cases, which is, again, you know, among the best in the country. And then some of these guys are poor shots. I mean, you see a bunch of rounds all over the place, and they're not hitting anybody. And although it's a violent incident, it's a blessing that nobody got hit. It's particularly when you look at the numbers of shell casings that we're finding, that they're not hitting anybody. So, you know, I think that in that we count our blessings, but again, we continue the work, both for our police department, the work that we'll soon be rolling out regionally, the work working with our partners. I spoke with the chief, and I spoke with the district attorney on Saturday, offering her assistance, and so we'll get through this together.
Thanks.
Thank you. Really?
Good to go. Well, I mean, I had a question, but it's kind of maybe county related.
Go ahead.
That has to do with the dock.
Oh, next.
No, the shuttle that was,
Oh,
was
oh.
created, I guess, a couple of years ago. It was always there, but they reconfigured it for, when the parking came in, it took Saturdays and then, a few hours, and for the workers to kind of help them and the tourists. So when the COVID thing happened, it was shut down and it's back up again, but it kind of limited hours.
It died.
Yeah,
Yes.
And so now, like, all the evening workers are, that are using it now, can't use it.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Is that temporary?
Well, yeah, I've heard that is temporary, and we're talking with them about how we expand that. I
These
mean,
are having issues with trying to find drivers, I think.
well, yeah, it is. Again, so that's been an issue for us. People have to be able to get to and fro, and so I suspect as we expand, again, we're still rolling out. I expect that should come back.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, it was great.
Oh, yeah.
Great tool.
Absolutely. And again, it helped people to park further away. It helped, clear up congestion downtown. So for every visitor and every local that we have come downtown, you have somebody who has to work downtown. And so,
And it was shared by,
of course, everybody was on it. I jumped on it. If it's close enough, I'd, take it a couple of
remind me
blocks.
of, just a book, public transit.
Absolutely. Chief?
Morning, folks. Let me start by telling you it was a busy weekend for the men and women of the Savannah Police Department. But as usual, they stepped up and did an outstanding job. I know a lot of them didn't get a lot of sleep, spent a lot of time away from their families, and I greatly appreciate it. But let me go over a few of the incidents that we had this past weekend, because there are a few of them we're still looking for some additional information, some tips, or whatever other information the public may be able to provide to us. We had a total between Friday and Sunday night, early Monday morning, a total of 6 shooting incidents that we responded to. And I'll go through those 6 for you, so you've got some information that you'll be able to pass on to the public, and hopefully they may be able to provide some information to us. The first one happened on Friday evening, late Friday afternoon, about 5 p.m. That was at Rogers and Carolyn Street. That was a 17-year-old male who received a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to the lower body. He was transported to St. Joseph's Hospital by private vehicle and was then transferred to Memorial Hospital. He stated he was shot while attempting to purchase a gun at this location. Detectives are still reviewing witness statements and video evidence to identify the suspects involved in that incident. Second one happened also on Friday night. That was at 10:30 p.m. in the area of Paulson and Hamilton Court. That was a 54-year-old male who received a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to the shoulder. He was transported to Memorial Hospital by private vehicle. He stated he was just driving through the area when his vehicle was struck by gunfire. He could not provide any information on suspects or why his vehicle may have been targeted. The next one also happened on Friday night. That was about 11:30 p.m. That was in the area of Avery and Wilder Street. That was a 31-year-old male who received a life-threatening gunshot wound. He was transported to Memorial Hospital by private vehicle. He died as a result of his injuries on July the 3rd. Detectives are still working, trying to identify the motive for this shooting. And then the next one happened on Saturday evening, about 6 p.m. That was at LeGrand and Anderson Street. That was a 24-year-old male who received a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to the leg. He was transported to Memorial Hospital by ambulance. Preliminary information indicates that there was an exchange of gunfire between the victim and at least one other person at that scene. The victim was treated at the hospital and was then transported to the Chatham County Detention Center, and he was charged with possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. The next one happened on Sunday. That one happened about 8 p.m. in the 800 block of East 34th. That was a 37-year-old male who received a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to the arm. He was transported to Memorial Hospital by ambulance. Victim stated he was involved in an altercation in the area that resulted in him punching the window of a vehicle. He states an occupant of that vehicle then shot him, and the vehicle then fled from the area. And then the last one we had was late Sunday night, early Monday morning, right around midnight. That was the one right behind City Hall here on River Street. That was an 18-year-old male who received a non-life-threatening gunshot wound to the upper body. He was transported to Memorial Hospital by ambulance. That victim was involved in some type of altercation with two males on River Street after the fireworks show. That altercation escalated into both the victim and the suspects pulling weapons and exchanging gunfire. Detectives are reviewing videos and interviewing witnesses for this incident. That victim was also arrested and transported to Chatham County Detention Center for an active warrant that he had out. I can tell you, with the exception of, I believe, Hamilton Court, I responded to each one of these shooting scenes, and I'm very proud of the outstanding work the men and women of the Savannah Police Department did on these scenes. What I can tell you as far as follow-up is right now there is no indication that any of these incidents are connected. I can tell you there's at least one thing in common for each one of these incidents, and that's a firearm was accessible and used in each one of these incidents. This continues to be a concern both locally and nationally for law enforcement. Access to and use of firearms is one of the top challenges for law enforcement all around the country. As you can see from the article I passed out to you, over the holiday weekend, 4th of July weekend, over 150 people were shot, fatally shot, and 400 shootings across the country. I mean, you're looking at New York with 26 victims, 21 shooting incidents, Chicago, 69 shootings, 100 victims, 18 people died, including a 5- and a 6-year-old who were wounded in separate incidents. Cobb County, where they had the triple shooting, Fort Worth, where 8 people were shot during an incident at a car wash, Norfolk, Virginia, where 4 children were shot, ages 6, 14, and 2 16-year-olds. A 15-year-old has been arrested and charged for that shooting. Toledo, Ohio, where a 17-year-old was killed and 11 others were injured during a shooting at a block party. Cincinnati, where a 16 and a 19-year-old were killed. 3 others, a 15, 16, and 17-year-old, were injured during a shooting at a park. And then Dallas experienced 4 homicides. I can tell you locally, community members are fed up with this madness that's going on in our community. What we're seeing is people who would normally stay inside their residence or their apartments and look out of their windows when we were out processing crime scenes are now meeting us out at the crime scene and talking to us and communicating with us. And it's very encouraging to see. So that's what I have as far as a summary. I wanted to provide all of you folks with accurate information so that you can assist us with getting information out to the public. So any questions you have?
Actually, just a couple for me. So I know we honed in on 4 of those. The other 2 we didn't know about. In any of those cases, was there ever a concern for the public's safety, that there was going to be continuing violence in the area? Again, my only concern is us disseminating that information to the public. If we didn't know that, then we wouldn't be able to convey that to people to let them know that something happened.
Yeah, and Sean, as you know, we always try and get as much information out as we can. What we have right now is just very, very limited information, especially a couple of them. People are telling us they didn't see anything. There's no suspect information. There is some information that detectives are trying to process now, and as they process that information, it may be an opportunity for us to get some information out to the public.
Okay. And you mentioned the one that happened here on River Street, that detectives were reviewing video evidence. I know cameras are all up and down this area. The vehicle in that case did get away?
Well, I'm not sure about a vehicle. I didn't receive any information about a vehicle.
Okay. Oh, no, I'm thinking of the one where somebody punched the side of the vehicle.
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, that was the one over on 33rd.
Okay. So I know in the past we talked about intelligence-based policing, that in areas where we have a higher concentration of crimes, that y'all are focusing efforts in that area or in those areas. Is that still something going on, especially in areas like Avery, Wilder, even down to 33rd Pulse and in those areas where, if you look at the crime map, there are frequently blips that pop up?
It is still a priority. As you can tell, it was a very busy weekend for us. So we were continuing to try and keep officers in those high crime areas, those hot spots as we call them, as much as possible. Unfortunately, some of these calls for service required officers being pulled out of those areas into other areas and then placed back in those areas. The other thing that was a challenge for us this weekend, the number of shot spotter calls that we had from celebratory gunfire. We keep telling people, what goes up eventually has to come down at some point in time. And we had at least one instance that I'm aware of, that I believe your story broadcast, about a vehicle that we believe may have been damaged by celebratory gunfire.
Do you have that number as far as shot spotter calls over the weekend?
We do, and I can have Bianca get that to you.
Thanks.
Good morning, Chief.
Hey, Ariana.
Are all 6 of these shootings still open for investigation right now?
Yes.
And I want to ask you the same question that I asked Mayor Johnson. What is the solution to, this is now the 3rd shooting on Avery Street as far as, I guess my question is, what has the Savannah Police Department been doing between that mass shooting and this one this past weekend in that area?
Well, there's a couple of things. We continue to increase our presence over in that area, but I think the big thing that we're doing is working with the Housing Authority of Savannah. We've got some things that need to be addressed over there, and I know talking with the director over there on Saturday, she's moving forward with looking to see what she needs to do to address some of those issues. So we will be continuing to meet with them this week. I know the public housing officer and the captain for that precinct are continuing to meet with the on-site managers over there and continue to work through some of the issues. So we're continuing to work on those things. We realize that this is at least the 3rd shooting that we've had over there, and we've got to address this. We don't want to have another one.
When we talk about 3 shootings there, how hard is it at the investigative standpoint, to see a bullet hole in the side of the house and say, was this from this weekend or 2 weeks ago? How hard is that on her?
Well, of course it's hard. It's concerning, but we want to make sure we do the best job possible so that we don't continue to go over there and continue to find or experience incidents of gun violence.
At this point, does it look like this from this weekend was related to that mass shooting?
I'm not sure yet. The detectives are still working through the information they're receiving to try and determine a motive for last weekend's shooting.
Are there any updates on suspects from that mass shooting or the investigation?
The detectives are still following up on leads that are still continuing to come in regarding the shooting. All right, thank you.
Thank you all.